Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, Lori, you gotta do that whole thing before bedtime? All right.
Training.
Start till, you gotta start in the morning for that.
No, otherwise they hear double. Keep quiet on. Okay, so the timer's not working yet.
Like you said, log out and just re-invite it.
Blue.
Give them a yellow card, Terry.
How many times did you fall asleep? I just had to walk away just like every 15 minutes. Read it like how many study sessions? Well, that's why I was like, okay, everybody knows this code. You guys have been doing this, so I was trying to catch up a little bit and like understand it. I don't think I'm particularly there, obviously, but it's like, oh, we're not voting on this today. Oh, we're not. Here we are. Well, because it says to sign it on May 16th, so I thought. Is there a motion tonight? I mean, this is the.
We're seeing a lot of really mild.
Better be clear on that.
Not. Probably, yeah.
Yeah. So it'd be first reading. Next time we do second. Right, so you're not. Oh, you. Oh, okay. Okay. So we'll do first reading this time and then next time, second reading. It's done. I didn't tell you where to find what the
Wear masks.
are. So when you say, ordinance number, we're gonna adopt ordinance number. Oh. And the next resolution. Just a. I did not even. That's where we find, so. Did you want to make that motion? I think you're gonna make a motion, they can really get in there between Rich and Bruce. They've got it covered, right?
What's it get? Okay. I'll
I
do
jumped on the Lorian one. Maybe I'll do the same education one. If I can,
only on study session.
make it. Seconds, 36. Wait, I'm waiting for you to give me a sip because I can't see the time.
Don't even have to remind people to turn their phones off anymore, usually. Okay, welcome to the Ellensburg City Council meeting of May 6th, or May 2nd, 2022. And we will say the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilmember Goodlow.
Allegiance to
Will the clerk please take the roll?
Elliot,
Here.
Goodlow,
Here.
Milquist, Miller,
Here.
Monica Miller, Tab,
Here.
Win.
Here.
We have a number of proclamations this evening. And first up is the National Day of Prayer. Frank Johnson, the pastor at the Chestnut Street Baptist Church, is with us, and he is one of the organizers of the Day of Prayer, an occasional daily record editorial writer. So if you stand at the podium thing.
Well, Mayor Lilquist and members of the City Council, thank you for a few minutes of your agenda this meeting. I appreciate it. Again, lead pastor at Chestnut Street Baptist Church, but I also come representing this evening the Kittitas Valley Ministerial Association for the KVMA. For many years, the KVMA has sponsored an observance on the National Day of Prayer, an annual day established by the Congress of the United States for the first Thursday of May. And every year we've made the request, and the City Council has supported a proclamation by the mayor that affirms the importance of this day of prayer for the citizens of Ellensburg. And so it is my hope that you will join this valuable local tradition and approve this following statement to be read by Mayor Lilquist in our local observance this Thursday, May 5th at noon in front of the City Hall, right out there. So this is how this statement goes. National Day of Prayer, May 5th, 2022. Whereas on April 17th, 1952, the Congress of the United States approved a joint resolution to provide for setting aside an appropriate day as a National Day of Prayer. Whereas the history of our nation is indelibly marked with the role that prayer has played in the lives of individuals and the nation. Whereas historically our greatest leaders have turned to prayer in times of crisis and thanksgiving. And whereas the virtues of prayer reflect a common bond, hopes and aspirations, sorrows and fears, remorse and renewed resolve, thanks and joyful praise and love. Now, therefore, we do hereby proclaim May 5th, 2022 as the day of prayer in the city of Ellensburg, Washington, in keeping with the wishes of the Congress of the United States. We urge all citizens to join in this special observance. Signed the second day of May, 2022. So may I thank you for your consideration of this request, and I might just remind you that we'll be praying for all of you on May 5th at noon as well. So if that helps, one way or the other, we will anyway. So thank you.
Madam Mayor, do you want these individually or all?
Yeah, let's
Madam Mayor, I move the mayor's signature on the National Day of Prayer proclamation.
motion and second for mayor's signature on the National Day of Prayer.
I'd like to abstain.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And two for that, and with one abstention. That passes. The next proclamation is the National Public Works Week, which Councilmember Elliott has agreed to read.
National Public Works Week. Whereas public works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities and services that are of vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities and to the public health, high quality of life and well-being of the people of Washington. And whereas these infrastructure, facilities and services could not be provided without their dedicated efforts, the dedicated efforts of public works professionals who are engineers, managers, and employees at all levels of government and in the private sector, who are responsible for rebuilding, improving, protecting our nation's transportation, water supply, water treatment, solid waste systems, public buildings, and other structures and facilities essential for our citizens. And whereas it is in the public interest for citizens, civic leaders, and children of the state of Washington to gain knowledge of and to maintain a progressive interest in the understanding of the importance of public works and the public works programs in their respective communities. Whereas the year 2022 marks the 62nd annual National Public Works Week sponsored by the American Public Works Association. Now therefore, the City Council and the City of Ellensburg do hereby designate the week of May 15 to 21, 2022 as the National Public Works Week. We urge all of our citizens to join with representatives of the American Public Works Association and government agencies in activities, events, and ceremonies designed to pay tribute to our public works professionals, maintenance and operations personnel, engineers, managers, and employees, and to recognize the substantial contributions they make to protecting our national health, safety, and quality of life. Signed May 2, 2022.
Madam Mayor, motion to approve proclamation for National Public Works Week.
Second.
Motion and second to approve the proclamation for the National Public Works Week. All in favor?
Aye.
Two will vote aye. That motion carries. Our next proclamation is Arts Education Month. Jerry Dougherty is on our screen. Unmute him. Thank you.
Hi, good evening, everybody. I'm Jerry Dougherty from the Arts Commission, and on behalf of the commission, I'd like to thank the council for commemorating May as Arts Education Month. I know several of you have had the opportunity in the last 2 months to attend some of the cultural assessment survey sessions that have happened and understand fundamentally the value of the arts in our community as both a driver of economic development and as an essential part of the community. So I just, on behalf of the commission, I'm here to say thank you for this commemorating the month of May as Arts Education Month.
Are you going to read?
I can read it. I was not prepared to, but I can.
Okay.
Fantastic.
Invited you. Was
Oh, no, I can do it. Arts Education Month proclamation. Whereas the City of Ellensburg recognizes the arts as an essential element of a balanced education for all students, and collaboration, creativity, and critical thinking are increasingly understood as essential skills needed in the 21st century workforce. And whereas learning through the arts enables students to express their unique stories through many mediums, languages, and perspectives, and encourages children, youth, educators to look for connections and broader meanings. And whereas arts education helps students develop problem-solving skills, experience belonging and cross-cultural understanding, and supports interdisciplinary academic success. And whereas the arts help close the opportunity gap for students, preschool through higher education, by supporting the development of social, emotional skills alongside academic content through joyful online, remote, and in-home learning at this transformative time. And whereas, while it is difficult to teach virtually, arts educators who are accustomed to adaptability and ingenuity are doing an incredible job of ensuring that families have access to physical and digital arts materials and relevant curriculum. And whereas many schools facing budget shortfalls may prioritize subjects like reading, writing, and math, arts education through theater, visual arts, media arts, music, dance are included in rigorous and relevant core academic content. And whereas access to culturally responsive arts education is sustained by a wide range of partners, including school leadership, educators, families, teaching artists, arts organizations, and local and statewide organizations. And whereas we recognize the professional and innovative efforts of arts educators and advocates around the City of Ellensburg and call for community leaders to continue to strengthen our efforts that increase access to inclusive arts education for every student, regardless of geographic location. Now, therefore, we, the City Council of the City of Ellensburg, do hereby proclaim the month of May as Arts Education Month, dated this second day of May, 2022.
Madam Mayor, I move mayor's signature on the Arts Education Month proclamation.
second. You stole Monica's thunder. Motion and second to approve the mayor's signature on the Arts Education Month proclamation. All in favor?
Aye.
Two will vote aye. That motion carries. Our next proclamation is the Jewish American Heritage Month. And we have Bethany Karasi to read for us.
Yeah, so my name is Bethany Krazi. I'm a master's in geology student at CWU, and actually, me and my friends are taking Professor Lilquist's soils class this quarter, so it is an honor to be here today. Jewish American Heritage Month 2022. Whereas the first Jewish immigrants arrived on American soil in 1654 in New Amsterdam, fleeing oppression from other areas of the world and looking for the possibility of a freer future. And whereas President George W. Bush issued the first presidential proclamation in 2006, designating May as Jewish American Heritage Month. And whereas we recognize the impact of the increasing bias acts committed toward our Jewish neighbors today, we remember the lessons of the Holocaust and recognize the need to root out prejudice and combat anti-Semitism in this nation. And whereas we recognize Jewish Americans who have made and continue to make significant contributions to our society, Americans such as Dr. Elise Frankel Brunswick, a social psychologist who made significant contributions to research on the impacts of anti-Semitism, Dr. Eric Byrne, who developed groundbreaking transactional analysis that is used across many organizations, and to Daniel Levine, who wrote extensively on Jewish identity. And whereas we recognize Jewish Americans who contributed to our local community, such as Henry and Selig Samuel Kleinberg, who came to Ellensburg in 1885, whose heritage includes the Kleinberg Building and the Kleinberg Park, and Samuel Kreidel, who owned a general merchandise store, who built the Kreidel Building and served as mayor of Ellensburg, first in 1915, and then served several terms as a city council member. And Betty Jean Gottlieb Allen, who worked alongside her husband to open Allen's Ice Cream, Ellensburg's first in-and-out roller skate curb service business that served local families and students from 1946 to 1962. And Martin Katz, who taught geography at Central Washington University for over 4 decades, served on the Ellensburg Downtown Task Force from 1980 to 2010, and whose insight helped shape land use planning in Ellensburg and the region. And whereas the city of Ellensburg recognizes and honors the Jewish Americans residing herein, who strengthen our medical, educational, business, religious, and civic organizations. And now, therefore, the City Council of the City of Ellensburg does hereby proclaim May 2022 as Jewish American Heritage Month in Ellensburg, and encourages all citizens to join in this observation by building bridges of understanding and friendship with our Jewish American neighbors. Signed this second day of May, 2022.
Thank you.
Move the mayor's signature on the proclamation Jewish American Heritage Month 2022.
Motion and second to authorize mayor's signature on the Jewish American Heritage Month proclamation. All in favor?
Aye.
Two will vote aye. That motion carries. And our next, it's a busy month for proclamations. Our next proclamation is the Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. And we have Chung Un An, who is a CW historian of modern East Asia. With us.
Thank you, Council, for inviting me to this meaningful moment celebrating Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. I stand here as a Director of Asian Studies program at Central Washington University, but also as a mother of 2 children who identify as an Ellensburger and an Asian American. So let me read the proclamation. Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Heritage Month 2022. Whereas May is a celebration of Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander cultures, languages, and religions, and a recognition that these peoples, as individuals and groups, have enriched the United States culture and society and strengthened its global connection. And whereas these AANHPI communities have contributed significantly to make our nation more vibrant through their diversity of cultures, languages, and religions. And whereas we acknowledge the AANHPI communities continue to experience exclusion, racism, discrimination, physical attackers, incarceration, and deportation, and a lack of equity in this country. And whereas, quote, the American story, as we know, it would be impossible without the strength, contributions, and legacies of AANHPIs who have helped build and unite this country in each successive generation. From laying railroad tracks, tilling fields, and starting businesses, to caring for our loved ones and honorably serving the country in uniform, AANHPI communities are deeply rooted in the history of the United States. End quote. And whereas historically, many residents made significant contributions to the city of Ellensburg, such as Bunyom, who opened the first Thai restaurant in Ellensburg and published his story, quote, "Tomorrow I am dead," end quote, chronicling his imprisonment and escape from the Khmer Rouge and his immigration from Cambodia to Ellensburg with his family in 1984. And Solomon Laingo, a Philippine immigrant and highly decorated Tech Tech 5 soldier in World War II, serving our country in exchange for his citizenship. And Tokyo and Machi Ota, one of many Ellensburg area Asian American families who became part of the 112,000 Asian American residents on the West Coast, incarcerated in internment camps as a result of Federal Executive Order 9066 after the Pearl Harbor attack in 1941. And Officer Nelson Ng, Ellensburg Police Department, who died in the line of duty in 2008. And whereas the city of Ellensburg recognizes and honors many other Asian American, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders residing herein who contribute each day to the strength and vibrancy of our community. Now, therefore, the City Council of the City of Ellensburg does hereby proclaim May 2022 as Asian Pacific American Heritage Month in Ellensburg and encourages all citizens to join in this observance by building bridges of understanding and friendship with our Asian Pacific American neighbors. Signed this second day of May 2022. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, move for mayor's signature on Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Heritage Month proclamation.
Second.
Motion and second for the mayor's signature on the Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander.
Yeah, one quick grammatical thing on a line now there for it's May 2021, not May 2022.
Okay, yeah. We'll make that correction before we sign. Okay, thanks. All in favor?
Aye.
Two will vote aye, that motion carries. Next is Bicycle Month, and our liaison to the Environmental Commission / Bicycle Advisory Commission has agreed to read.
Bicycle Month proclamation, May 2022, excuse me. Whereas the bicycle is a healthy, convenient, financially and environmentally sound form of transportation and an excellent tool for recreation and enjoyment of Ellensburg's scenic beauty. And whereas Ellensburg and Kittitas County roads and trail systems attract bicyclists every year, provide economic health, transportation, tourism, and scenic benefit. And whereas creating a cycling-friendly community has been shown to improve residents' physical and mental health, well-being, and quality of life, growing the economy of Ellensburg, attracting tourism dollars, improving traffic safety, supporting student learning outcomes, and reducing pollution. congestion, and wear and tear on our streets and roads. And whereas greater public awareness of bicycle operations and safety education will reduce collisions, injuries, and fatalities and improve health and safety for everybody on the road. And whereas the state of Washington has been ranked #1 bicycle-friendly state in the nation since 2008. And whereas the city of Ellensburg is a silver level bicycle-friendly community. And whereas Friday, May 20th, 2022 is National Bike to Work Day, and the Kittitas County Chamber of Commerce will offer a free breakfast for bicyclists on their way to work. And whereas the city of Ellensburg and other community organizations will collaborate on a bike month celebration ride on the Palouse to Cascades Trail from downtown Ellensburg to Renslow Trussels on Saturday, May 21st, 2022, leaving at 9 a.m. from Unity Park. Now therefore, the City Council of the City of Ellensburg does hereby proclaim May 2022 as Bike Month in Ellensburg and urges all residents to join the special observance. Signed this second day of May 2022.
We're no longer the #1 state.
We were.
It's in the Seattle Times.
I move the mayor's signature on the bicycle proclamation,
Second.
regardless of what stats we are.
On to #2. Second.
Motion and second for the mayor's signature on the Bicycle Month proclamation.
Just saying.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I too will vote aye.
Oregon and Massachusetts.
Well,
Massachusetts.
slipping, I guess. Our last proclamation is the National Historic Preservation Month, and Amy McCoy from our Landmarks and Design Commission is here to read for us.
Thank you, City Council, Mayor Lindquist. I'm here, I'm the department, or not department chair, sorry, I'm the chair for the Landmarks and Design Commission, and very proud to bring to you yet another fun reason to have May in our calendar year is National Historic Preservation Month, 2022. And as we all know, with our murals in downtown district, that this is very important to all of us and dear to our heart. So I shall read. Whereas it is important to celebrate the role of history in our lives and the contributions made by dedicated individuals and public agencies in helping to preserve the tangible aspects of the heritage that has shaped us as a people. And whereas historic preservation is relevant for communities across the nation, both urban and rural, and for Americans of all ages, all walks of life, and all ethnic backgrounds. And whereas historic preservation is an effective tool for revitalizing neighborhoods, managing growth and sustainable development, fostering local pride, and maintaining community character while enhancing livability. And whereas people saving places is the national theme embraced for Ellensburg's Preservation Month 2022. Co-sponsored by the Ellensburg Landmarks and Design Commission, the Kittitas County Historical Museum, the EDA, and the National Trust for Historic Preservation. Now therefore, we, the City Council of the City of Ellensburg, do proclaim May 2022 as National Historic Preservation Month and call upon the people of Ellensburg to join their fellow citizens across the United States of America in recognizing and participating in this special observance.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I move mayor's signature on the National Historic Preservation Month proclamation.
Motion and second for mayor's signature on the National Historic Preservation Month proclamation. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I too will vote aye. We made it. Marathon.
We make it when we get to adjourn.
Oh,
That's-
there are no awards or recognitions, so we are finally to approval of the agenda.
Madam Mayor, I move approval of the agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion and second to approve the agenda as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
I too will vote aye. Consent agenda.
Move the consent.
Second.
Motion and second to approve the consent agenda as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Two will vote aye. That motion carries. There are no petitions or protests. This is time for a citizen comment on non-agenda items. This is time for the public to comment on something that is not on our agenda. You have 3 minutes. Is there anyone who would like to speak? And signing in just in time is Mr. Kelleher. Please state your name and address, and if you are speaking for yourself or for others.
Thank you, Ms. Mayor. Pat Kelleher, 6530 Wilson Creek Road. I'm speaking for myself. I've missed you. I haven't come for the last couple ones. Things, of course, up on Cora Street are interesting. I guess it's legal to park in a no parking side of the street and then make a left turn into Mount Stewart parking lot across 2 active lanes. That's a common occurrence. There's a stop sign entering as you enter Cora Street off of Ida Nesa or Aronica. And the technique there is if the first car ahead of you makes it in, then you can follow them, especially if there's a bus. The buses heading south on Core will yield to you. It's just a pickup rule that the parents have developed to coordinate pickup there in the mess. We haven't done the simple act of restoring the drop off to the existing parking lot, which would alleviate 75% of the concerns up there at no financial cost. But the reason I'm here tonight is to follow up on my request that I made to the mayor to explain how $4 million worth of mitigation was avoided on the school construction by doing a lot line adjustment, boundary line adjustment. And I just didn't understand it. So city staff contacted me. We set up a meeting and they were a little confused as to why. I mean, I was pretty specific that I wanted to talk about the Ida Nason, and they thought I just wanted to talk about how to do a boundary line adjustment. But we had a good meeting, and what was explained to me was that how it was done was custom, how you could take a lot, move it across another property that's not involved, and end up with a new lot, not an additional lot, but a new lot that's not contiguous to any of the beginning things. And I just want to know how that trick is done. I want to know how that $4 million trick is done, because we have the John Wayne Trail or the Palouse to Cascades running through our community, which is the property which was involved. We also have the Ellensburg Water Company Canal, which is the same type of ownership, contiguous ownership. And if you can do that trick using those parcels, I mean, that could save some developers a lot of development costs and put money in their pocket. And I just want to be able to teach them how to do that. And but I was assured that it was custom, and they would find an example other than the one that was done. And I got a letter here on the 14th that said, okay, we found one. We're going to send you a copy. Okay. Well, it's the 5th.
Mr. Kelleher, I'm sorry, your time is up.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. And I guess if you have further questions, I think staff can provide those answers. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on non-agenda items? Is there anyone online? If so, raise your hand. Seeing no one, we will move on to business requiring a public hearing. And we have 3 public hearings tonight. The first hearing is on page 82. This is a closed record quasi-judicial hearing in the matter of the resolution to approve preliminary plat application for the Katy Meadows subdivision. The purpose of this closed record quasi-judicial hearing is for the city council to consider the pertinent facts, applicable law, and to make a final decision on whether to adopt a resolution approving the application for preliminary plat approval of the Katy Meadows subdivision, application number P21-157, submitted by Tyler Glahn, agent for Criddle Enterprises, Inc. The closed record hearing is to consider the application for preliminary plat approval of the Katy Meadows subdivision is now open. I ask for your cooperation in the following procedure. This is a closed record hearing. There has already been an open record hearing before the hearings examiner where evidence was submitted and testimony received. Under state law, there can only be one open record public hearing allowed in the proceeding. This closed record hearing means the council bases its decision only on the record developed at the public hearing previously held before the hearings examiner. Only city staff and the applicant who already participated in the open record hearing on this matter through written comments or oral testimony received by the hearing examiner can participate in this closed record hearing. No new testimony or introduction of new materials or evidence is allowed. Comments or arguments must address only the record already established during the previous open record hearing before the hearings examiner and must be directed to the issue of whether the hearings examiner's decision should or should not be adopted. If anyone presents comments that are not based on facts in this record, anyone may make objection. If an objection is made, the person speaking will stop until the issue of the objection is resolved. The city clerk will be making a recording of the proceedings. I will first recognize requests to testify from anyone attending this hearing in person, followed by any persons attending remotely via Zoom. If you wish to participate virtually via Zoom, you must raise your virtual hand on the Zoom meeting screen or press *9 if you're connected by telephone and wait until I have recognized your request and you have been unmuted. When you are invited to speak, begin by stating your name and address and indicate whether you are speaking for yourself individually or as a spokesperson for a certain group or both. Speak slowly and clearly. Only one person will be allowed to speak at a time. Any questions of staff are to be directed through the council. The city council seeks to conduct this hearing in a manner that is fair and unbiased in both appearance and fact. Therefore, I would ask the council members the following questions. Does any member of the council have an interest in this property or issue?
No.
To say no. Will any member of the council obtain any financial benefit or suffer a financial loss as a result of the outcome of this hearing?
No.
I also did no. Does any council member believe he or she cannot hear and consider this matter in a fair and objective manner?
No.
Has any council member engaged in communication with the opponents or proponents regarding this issue outside of the public hearing process? If so, that member must place on the record the substance of the communication so that other interested parties may have the right at this hearing to rebut the substance of the communication.
No.
I also know. Is any council member employed by the party which has a direct or indirect interest in any property, the value of which will be affected by a decision in this matter? No. I also answer no. Will any council member be employed by a party for which the potential employment may be a result of the decision in this matter? I also answer no. Is any council member a member of or involved in such associations or organizations, whether formal or informal, which takes a position on this application?
No.
I am not either. Is any member of a council member's family or any person with which they have a social relationship, an advocate or witness who has provided oral or written testimony or argument in this matter, or will provide oral or written testimony or argument in this matter? No. Not either. Is there anyone present at this time who objects to my participation or any council member's participation in these proceedings on appearance of fairness grounds? Seeing no one, and no one's hand is raised. Before we hear from the audience, is there a staff report to be presented?
There is. Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. Jamie Ailing with the Community Development Department. What you have before you is a closed record quasi-judicial hearing for City Council to consider the application for a proposed preliminary plat known as Katy Meadows. This was submitted by Tyler Glon, Crytel Enterprises. The proposed preliminary plat is located on Kittitas County Assessor's Parcel Number 791133, which is located on the south side of Bender Road, just east of the Bender-Hannah Road intersection. That property is 7.32 acres in size, and it's currently zoned residential suburban. The applicant's proposal in this application would create 40 separate residential lots, which does meet the allowable maximum density of that zone. The northern street frontage of Bender Road is an existing major collector street and defined as a landscape street in our code. The proposed interior road system includes new local access streets and also provides an extension of 26th Avenue. This infill project requires the construction of full street improvement for the interior access streets to provide the connectivity and achieve the goals and policies within the land use, housing, and transportation chapters of the Ellensburg Comprehensive Plan. The review procedures and criteria for the preliminary plat process are outlined in our municipal code, chapter 15.260. Through that process, a SEPA mitigated determination of non-significance was issued for this project on October 18th, 2021. And a public hearing was also held before the hearing examiner on March 25th, 2022. The hearing examiner, Andrew Kottkamp, provided a recommendation on that same day, March 25th, 2022, with his findings of fact, conclusions of law, and decision of conditions that were included in this report. In your packet is Exhibit 1. Hearing examiner recommended that Katy Meadows plat be approved, and he attached 8 conditions depicted in that same exhibit. Pursuant to our code, section 15.260.060 states council shall, at the conclusion of the hearing, make its own decision, supported by written findings of fact and conclusions of law, and approve with conditions or disapprove the preliminary subdivision application. Council's being requested to approve the preliminary plat subdivision by adopting the proposed resolution, which incorporates the hearing examiner's recommendation. As staff, I would agree with the hearing examiner's conclusion that the proposed plat application meets the requirements and applicable standards of the Land Development Code. And with that, I can stand for any questions.
Thank you, Jamie. Is the applicant's representative present, or does he have comments or argument that he would like to make at this time? If so, please remember your comments must be limited to the evidence in the record established by the hearings examiner and must not include or refer to any new evidence or materials outside of the hearing record. You will have an opportunity to address the council for an initial period not to exceed 5 minutes. If more time is needed, it will be made available after everyone has had an opportunity to speak. I do not see Mr. Vaughn here or online, unless he is guest. No. So, does staff have anything to add?
I have nothing further.
Okay, there is no applicant's representative. Council, do you have any questions for staff? Seeing none, before closing the public hearing, I wish to advise everyone present that the council reserves the right to reopen this hearing for additional questions or take additional comments later tonight or at a continued hearing if needed. So the public comment portion of this hearing is now closed. Council may now begin its discussion and deliberation of this matter.
I'll move resolution 2022-14 approving preliminary plat application of Katy Meadows subdivision.
Second.
Motion and second to approve resolution 2022-14 relating to the preliminary plat approval of Katy Meadows subdivision. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Two will vote aye. That motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next public hearing is our supplemental budget ordinance. And this is a legislative hearing. So the purpose of this legislative hearing is for the city council to consider first reading of an ordinance to amend to the 2021-22 biennial budget. The public hearing is now open. I ask for your cooperation in the following procedure. Everyone will be given an opportunity to be heard. The city clerk will be making a recording of these proceedings. I will first recognize requests to testify from anyone attending this hearing in person, followed by any persons attending remotely via Zoom. If you wish to participate virtually via Zoom, you must raise your virtual hand on the Zoom meeting screen or press *9 if you are connected by telephone and wait until I have recognized your request and you have been unmuted. When you are invited to speak, begin by stating your name and address and indicate whether you are speaking for yourself individually or as a spokesperson for a certain group or both. Speak slowly and clearly. Only one person will be allowed to speak at a time. Any questions of staff are to be directed through the council. Before we hear from the audience, is there a staff report to be presented?
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. I'm Keith Bassett with the city's Finance Department. The proposed supplemental budget before you this evening is a routine budget adjustment and principally carries forward unspent 2021 budget into 2022 to allow for project completion. Additionally, it formally amends the budget to include items previously approved through council action and includes a few other amendments. Of the proposed additional expenditure authority of approximately $31.5 million, approximately $29.4 million is carry forward of unspent budget from 2021. This includes approximately $8.3 million in the arterial street fund, $2.3 million of COVID-related federal funding, and $15.4 million in the utility funds, including bond-funded projects in the stormwater, water, and wastewater utility funds. These carry forward amounts for 2021 to 2022 are a larger dollar value than usual, principally due to the timing of projects crossing years, federal COVID funding, global supply chain impacts due to delivery times for city supplies and equipment, and carry forward of employee training budgets for training that was postponed or delayed because of COVID. Other items approved by council since the mid-biennium review supplemental budget was adopted in December 2021 include Ellensburg Downtown Association contract increase, 14th and Alder Signal and Palouse to Cascades Trail Reconnect Project, 5th and Railroad Signalization Project, Affordable Housing Project Funding, Annual Sidewalk Repair Program, Reeser Creek Levee Project Design and Certification, Department of Ecology Stormwater Capacity Grant Project, and Natural Gas Utility Walnut Street Rectifier Anode Replacement Project. Additional items in the proposed ordinance include risk mitigation funding, risk reduction grant for sidewalk grinding equipment from the city's risk pool, reconciliation of budgeted amounts for interfund services, anticipated city hall facility costs, and anticipated leave payouts for separating employees. Figures for each item by fund are included in table 1 of the agenda report, which begins on page 191 if someone's referring to the big packet. The cumulative effect of the proposed ordinance increases budgeted 2022 expenditures by approximately $3.5 million, revenue by approximately $22.2 million, and budgeted beginning fund balance by approximately $19.3 million. The effect of these amendments on the budget of 2022 ending fund balance is an increase of $9.9 million. For each budgeted fund within those totals, the proposed amendments maintain anticipated 2022 ending fund balance within the required fund balance thresholds. And at the conclusion of the public hearing, staff recommends considering first reading of the proposed supplemental budget ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you. The floor is open to testimony from the public. Each person will have an opportunity to address the council for an initial period not to exceed 5 minutes. If more time is needed, it will be made available after everyone has had an opportunity to speak. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak? See no one. Is there anyone online? See no hands raised. So, does the staff have anything to add? Council, do you have any questions, staff or public? Seeing none, the public testimony portion of this hearing is now closed. Council may now begin its discussions and deliberation of this matter.
Madam Mayor, I move first reading ordinance 4886, the 2021-22 supplemental budget ordinance.
Second. Motion and second for ordinance 4886, the 2021-22 supplemental budget ordinance. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Will vote aye. Opposed? That motion carries.
An ordinance amending the 2021-2022 biennial budget of the city of Ellensburg is set forth in ordinance number 4864 and previously amended as set forth in ordinance 4875 and ordinance number 4881 to adjust appropriations in the city's funds.
Thank you. And our last hearing for the evening, one more script. The purpose of this legislative hearing is for the city council to consider first reading of an ordinance to, that's the wrong one.
Your job is really glamorous as mayor, I'm just gonna say.
Yeah. I get to practice my reading skills. Okay, I have the right one this time. Purpose of this legislative hearing is for the city council to consider first reading of an ordinance to amend portions of the Ellensburg City Code pertaining to land use and zoning. The public hearing is now open. I ask for your cooperation in the following procedure. Everyone will be given an opportunity to be heard. The city clerk will be making a recording of the proceedings. I will first recognize requests to testify from anyone attending this hearing in person, followed by any persons attending remotely via Zoom. If you wish to participate virtually via Zoom, you must raise your virtual hand on Zoom meeting screen or press *9 if you are connected to a telephone and wait until I have recognized your request and you have been unmuted. When you are invited to speak, begin by stating your name and address and indicate whether you are speaking for yourself individually or as a spokesperson for a certain group or both. Speak slowly and clearly. Only one person will be allowed to speak at a time. Any questions of staff are to be directed through the council. Before we hear from the audience, is there a staff report to be presented?
There is. Good evening again, Madam Mayor, members of council, Jamie Ailing with Community Development Department. What we have before you tonight is a rather large packet. It's presenting the Land Development Code Amendment. This is a culmination of efforts that extend back to 2017. Within your packet is the agenda report that provides details about where the process started with the comp plan adoption and the extensive study sessions, workshops, and hearings to get where we are today. Council reviewed the draft ordinance over a series of 5 study sessions in the fall of 2021, and at the conclusion provided staff with direction to proceed with an ordinance adoption process, which we have. The proposed amendments to the code will add 2 new mixed-use zones, regional scale and neighborhood scale. It will eliminate the commercial tourist zone and consolidate that with the commercial highway zone. It will amend the zoning map. It will revise land use charts and will revise setback and density tables to accommodate the mixed use zones. Some of the specifics that you'll find going through this code that I can point out. There are several, but some of the highlights, the addition of multifamily being added to the CH zone through the use of a conditional use permit. This will open up some potential development opportunities in those zones for residential, which is a needed use in the city. The term general service establishments have been eliminated. It was just too general, and we had a lot of different categories. We got more specific with those and listed them specifically in the table. We separated bars and brew pubs, for one example, away from restaurants, as we were having some pressures and issues with whether those could be located in residential areas. Restaurants seem to work, bars maybe not so much. So separating those out seemed to be a good fit. One highlight that came out through our hearing process was a fire facility. It was noted that those were not listed as a permitted use in the industrial zone. It was pointed out to us by the county airport manager. He suggested that we add that. We reviewed it. We added it to our presentation to the Planning Commission at their public hearing, and it was recommended that the fire facility be added as a permitted use in the permitted use table in the industrial zone. The area-wide rezones that are included in this amendment, there are quite a few. Highlight those. The commercial tourist zone that's being eliminated will mostly affect both of the interchanges, and the CH will absorb that, transition to that. The regional center mixed use zoning, we will add that specifically to the portions of the west interchange. The neighborhood center mixed use zone is being added on Ruby Street, north of Umtanum and south of Mountain View Avenue. That's one of those areas that really has a great mix of uses now and would benefit from the continued mixture of uses on that street. The central commercial zone boundaries are being expanded through this amendment process, and other areas of town are being rezoned just to reflect the existing conditions. Similar to West Ellensburg, we have some industrial zone property, but it's full of houses, and they're not going to want to demo those houses to put in an industry. They want to continue those uses as houses. So the procedures for processing land development code amendments like this are outlined in our Ellensburg City Code 15250100 through the type 5 review process that must be followed. It requires a public hearing before the Planning Commission, who then forwarded a recommendation to City Council for their review and decision during this separate public hearing that we're holding now. The Planning Commission held their hearing on April 14th of 2022, and at the conclusion, they forwarded this recommendation of approval with the note that I added, the fire facility be included as a permitted use in the industrial zone. At that public hearing, staff also, we received 2 additional comments, public comments. We did include those in your packet as attachment 2 and 3. They were kind of one was a request and another was a support of the request. Property owner was requesting that his property, triangular piece on the south side of University Way, be also included in the mixed use rather than his existing commercial highway zone. Wanted to be able to do townhouses potentially on that property, which was detailed out in his request. Those were provided to the Planning Commission at the public hearing. Planning Commission took them under consideration, but did not feel that it was something they could support, and did not forward that recommendation on to council to include that property in the mixed use zone. At the conclusion of this public hearing, the decision criteria that council must consider are set forth in 15250100C. The amendment as follows: the amendment is in accordance with the comprehensive plan. The amendment will not adversely affect the public health, safety, or general welfare, and the amendment is not contrary to the best interest of the citizens and property owners of the city. Staff's analysis of this proposed modification and amendments are in accordance with these 3 decision criteria above, and we would recommend that council conduct a first reading of the attached ordinance. Thank you.
The floor is open to testimony from the public. Each person will have an opportunity to address the council for an initial period not to exceed 5 minutes. If more time is needed, it will be made available after everyone has had an opportunity to speak. There is no one in the room, I'm assuming, that would like to speak to this. Is there anyone online? I see James Rivard, but your hand is not raised. Would you like to speak? Here we go.
Well, I guess so. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, James Rivard, 113 West 10th Avenue. Yeah, I just want to say thank you to the city for continuing to push forward on the code revision. I know it's been many years in the making, and I didn't realize it was going forward until I kind of asked and had some investor interest in a property I own. And so then I kind of found out about it, dug through it, and wrote a comment up real fast. But yeah, no, I think there's a lot of good changes there. I had written the request just to include my property into the regional mixed use center zoning that was on the West Interchange. So that way it would just save me or some other investor or developer later time and energy to go back and make that request. Townhouses, I kind of have learned from different developers as a way for people to help fund the development to move it forward a little faster with the pre-sale. That's just kind of what I've kind of learned. So I thought it was a comment just to kind of throw out there and make sure it got heard. And then, you know, I've done some studying of the self-storage industry, and I'm not a big fan of the urban like sprawl of like 1-story storage units, and I wasn't really advocating for a storage unit business either, but there seems to be some advantages of putting, you know, self-storage above like a retail space, and that you don't have to then further consume other lands elsewhere for self-storage. So it kind of makes things a little more compact and keeps different areas open for development that provide a economic benefit to the city elsewhere. So just thought that that was a decent comment to make, because some people just aren't aware that in some urban settings, they've been putting self-storage above retail centers with the elevator around back. So I just wanted to include those pictures so that way people got that kind of concept for consideration. I didn't necessarily agree with like striking the self-storage in the commercial highway zone totally. I thought it should be left as a conditional use in case somebody wanted to propose self-storage above a retail space. So those are kind of my 3 main comments, but overall I'm happy the city's been moving forward on stuff, and that I think the new rezone will help give people flexibility. So thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else online who would like to speak? Seeing no one, does staff have anything to add?
Just appreciate the patience of council working with us. This has been a long process, and glad to, it's not the end all. We do have more amendments in the future, but it is a line in the sand. We could stop, get these done, and then move forward. So I appreciate patience and working with staff on getting this accomplished.
Thank you. Council, do you have any questions of the staff or public?
I have a question. Jamie, on page 207, under the amendments to the special uses table, the second bullet on museums, I'm just wondering if this is an inconsistency on this page and page 253. But you say museums are not permitted in the residential zones with certain conditions regarding size and age of the building. And then on page 253, at the very bottom on the underline, it says museums within the residential zoning districts are permissible within existing buildings, or if new construction, only under certain conditions. That confused me.
I apologize.
I just
Word
wanna make
not
sure.
should be strucken from the staff report
Okay.
because originally museums and theaters were all lumped together, and there's definitely different amounts of foot traffic associated. And there was a lot of talk put into the museums, other countries, and how there could be very small shrine type thing in people's houses. And so that's why the footnote was that we proposed that they're allowed in the residential with the footnote below it to restrict the size of them, so you weren't building a new 7,000 square foot museum in a residential area. So I apologize that
That's
not
okay.
got slipped into the report and shouldn't have been.
Thanks for that. And just as a comment, I would like to say thank you to the staff and community development and for the study session process that we had. That certainly helped me understand and grasp exactly what we're saying and doing here.
So we're just on questions still.
Yeah, I'm done with my questions.
Question. Like, I'm off topic, just cut me off. So I was curious, related to the planning commission public hearing, the individuals that provided comments, and then the record shows that the planning commission opted not to recommend those changes. This is where it may get off. If I get off the topic, just stop. But was there significant discussion about the merits of these proposals? Is this something that we could expect to see come back in the future? Is it dead on arrival? So limit your response to what you're able to say.
At the public hearing, there was discussions specific, they broke it down and specific to each of the points. The fact that the geographical boundary made sense for the mixed use zone and going across the street, just the property with its, I don't want to say issue, it has some constraints, just didn't necessarily seem to be, the uses weren't that much different from its existing CH to the mixed use. A couple of those, it could potentially, if future development provokes that, it could come back as a rezone potentially on a site-specific rezone to go to that. But at this time, the amount of development and pressures didn't warrant adding additional property to the regional or to the mixed use regional.
And then the townhouse, the proposal that just didn't.
That was all part of, that's one of the specific list uses that's changing in the permitted use table, that they're permitted in the mixed use zone, but not in the commercial highway. So that was, but the way it was proposed didn't make, was tough to follow on through the planning commission, trying to identify a townhouse as on a second story. It didn't quite fit the definition of a townhouse needing to be on the property and open on two sides. So it's hard to get a second floor townhouse.
Okay, thank you for that.
Anyone else have questions? The public testimony portion of this hearing is now closed. Council may now begin its discussion and deliberation of this matter.
Move ordinance 4887, the land development code amendments.
Motion and second for ordinance 4887, land development code amendments. Is there any discussion? First reading, yes. Just to note that Councilmember Monica Miller and Adam Wynn did not have the benefit of 6 study sessions to dive deep into this, but we're expecting you to vote in. Yeah.
Or the benefit of sitting through the planning commission meetings.
Yes. So there's no further comment. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I too will vote aye. That motion carries. Thank you, Jamie.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Ellensburg, Washington, amending Chapter 2.30 multifamily housing tax incentives and Chapter 14.04 traffic impact fee definitions and relating to the City of Ellensburg Land Development Code Title 15 as listed and amending area-wide zoning boundary maps.
Thank you. We are on page 285, increasing the city manager's contracting authority.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. I'm Keith Bassett from the Finance Department. The proposed ordinance amends Chapter 1.06 of the Ellensburg City Code to modify the authorities that council delegates to the city manager. The City Council has delegated authority to execute certain agreements, contracts, and leases and amendments to allow for routine matters to be addressed efficiently. Most of these authorities are limited by dollar value, currently set in City Code at $40,000. The city has adopted policies and procedures to meet the dual objectives of sound fiscal oversight and expedient processes. Costs of routine purchases regularly exceed the existing delegated authorities, and increasing the threshold to $75,500 will better balance the city's objectives. The threshold has been changed 3 times in the last 30 years. In 1993, it was established at $10,000. 2013, it was increased to $25,000, and 2018 to $40,000. The proposed $75,500 contracting authority aligns with the existing statutory competitive bidding requirements for public works projects and was requested by stakeholders from across the city departments to align procedures across as many of the different procurement categories as possible for additional efficiencies. Any of the exemptions to competitive bidding allowed by RCW 39.04.280 currently require council action. And this has produced some delays to routine purchases through sole source distribution channels and potentially complicates the city's response to emergencies. The proposed changes delegate authority to waive competitive bidding requirements as allowed in the RCWs in the event of emergencies up to budget limits, and sole source purchases and purchases involving special facilities and market conditions up to the revised threshold of $75,500. Any exercise of the competitive bidding exemptions would require timely subsequent notice to council, and emergency sole source and special facility and market conditions purchases will continue to meet all other purchasing requirements. Council would still need to act to add any additional budget necessary in the event of an emergency contemplated here. So any expensive emergency, particularly the end of the year, would still require expedient council action. And it's worth noting that the proposed delegation of emergency purchasing authorities is separate from authorities that are also authorized by the state in the case of a true disaster. And staff recommends considering first reading of the proposed ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you. Council.
First reading of ordinance 4888, amending the city manager's purchasing authority.
Second. Motion and second for first reading of ordinance 4888, increasing the city manager's purchasing authority. Discussion?
Seems like a power grab, I'm just saying.
Yeah. But all in favor? All in favor of the power grab?
Aye.
Aye. And 2 will vote aye. That motion carries.
Start somewhere.
5,000 will get you as far as it used to. That's all I'm saying.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Ellensburg, Washington, relating to Chapter 1.06 City Manager and Assistant City Manager, amending Section 1.06.040 and adding a new section to the Ellensburg City Code entitled 1.06.045 Authority to Waive Competitive Purchasing Requirements.
Next up is policy resolution regarding holidays, Juneteenth.
Mayor and council members. I'm here to introduce a resolution to amend the personnel policies, adding Juneteenth as a paid holiday for non-represented employees. And Ms. Young, HR Director. A resolution is submitted to council when the personnel policies of the city need to be amended. This resolution, if adopted, will implement Juneteenth as a paid holiday for non-union city employees. It also includes some language cleanup for better clarity. By way of summary, on May 13th of 2021, Governor Inslee signed House Bill 1016, making Juneteenth, June 19th, a state holiday in Washington state as a day of remembrance for the day the African slaves learned of their freedom. On June 17, 2021, President Biden signed a bill declaring June 19th a federal holiday. The city of Ellensburg is a diverse community with residents from every background, and the Ellensburg City Council recognizes and supports diversity, equity, and inclusion. Adding Juneteenth as a paid holiday for non-union employees is consistent with and supports this goal. If the resolution is approved, the city will enter into agreements with our unions to add Juneteenth holiday to the list of holidays in our current collective bargaining agreements. For the financial impact for non-represented employees, the holiday equates to approximately 395 hours of paid leave. At the 2022 rates, this would be approximately $26,326 of salary and other personnel expenditures, for example, benefits, payroll taxes, etc. These expenditures are already budgeted as paid hours, so this would have no impact on total budgeted expenditures or fund balance. Minimal additional expenditures could occur to meet workload, including holiday pay or overtime and holiday weeks for eligible employees. Similarly, estimated impact for represented employees would be 1,042 hours of paid leave. At the 2022 rates, this would be approximately 50,642 of salary and other personal expenditures, including benefits, payroll taxes, etc. These expenditures also are already budgeted as paid hours, so this would have no impact on the total budgeted expenditures or fund balance. Additional expenditures are likely to be incurred to meet departmental workload, including holiday pay and overtime and holiday weeks. These would be presumed to be met within the existing budget levels for each department. Represented employees in the wastewater utility are eligible to thank holidays they work, which is likely to result in small increase in outstanding leave liabilities. This resolution was sent to the DEI Commission for their review, and we didn't receive any comment, so we thank them for their support, and thank you to you for presenting the financial impact for me.
Thank you. Council.
Resolution 2022-15, establishing Juneteenth as a
Motion and second for adoption of resolution 2022-15, recognizing Juneteenth as a city holiday. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I too will vote aye. Motion carries. Yeah. You're on item 11A, the 2022 first quarter financial status and investment reports on page 298.
every 3 months. We look forward to your graphs.
Now they have my PDF opening up on instead of the PDF version, but on the web, and then I never know. Thank you. Like superhero status, IT to the rescue.
Don't get in his way when he's headed for a lay-in. Basketball.
There we go. You see that now. Okay, good evening, Council and Madam Mayor. Jerica Pasco, Finance Director for the City of Ellensburg. So beginning on page 298 of your agenda packet are the 2022 financial status and investment reports for the period ending March 31st of 2022. The first quarter reports were presented to the Finance Committee at the April 20th, 2022 meeting. Year-end projections were made based on the current situations as of March 31st, and projections were made with the economic recovery from COVID in mind and using 2022 trends. Governmental funds, major funding sources, including the property tax, sales tax, utility taxes, licenses and permit fees and charges for services. Sales tax is the largest tax revenue source for the city at approximately 52%, followed by utility and property tax at 22%, and other taxes at 4% of city tax revenue. The tax revenue is approximately 19% of the total city revenues budgeted in 2022. And since these are such a high percentage of the governmental funds, that's why we speak to them so much in the quarterly report.
Can I interrupt for just a second? So on my screen, I am not seeing what is on that screen. Is this shared through Zoom? The Zoom? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. As long as everybody can see that. I'm seeing just the title page.
It's the web page, so she might need to select that.
That's okay. Resume share up here, maybe. And it goes back to the old, the internet version instead of. Yeah, it's moving. It's just not in the full view. Okay. So now do you see that
Yes, I
one?
do.
Okay, perfect. Okay,
Thank you.
sorry. My technical difficulty. So as displayed in table 1 here, the general fund, which is the largest governmental fund, expenditures are expected to come in below budget as required. Budgeted expenditures reflected all adjustments that were taken to council prior to March 31st. Revenue projections were done on an individual basis and will be discussed later in this report. The 2022 amounts were adopted in fourth quarter of 2020. So during this time, this budget was built, many numbers were down and projected to stay down due to the uncertainty of COVID. Earlier tonight, Keith Bassett brought forward a 2022 supplemental budget request to update the 2022 revenue numbers. A lot of the following revenue numbers that you will see, meaning that next quarter, the budget amounts should not be so far off from the projected amounts that you're seeing tonight. Table 2 shows your year-to-date revenues remitted from the state of Washington for 2020, 2021, and 2022. So overall revenue was up 8% over 2021 and up 18% over 2022. However, our liquor profits are down slightly, as well as the motor vehicle fuel tax. Hotel motel taxes, it looks like, have finally recovered to pre-COVID-19 revenue levels. Table 3 shows that all governmental funds tax revenues by tax type. So overall, our governmental fund tax revenue is projected to come in 2.1 million or 13.31% above budget. Keeping in mind, this was prior to the updated budget numbers that you saw earlier this evening from Keith. Again, utility and hotel motel taxes were expected to be the hardest hit governmental tax fund revenue. Hotel motel tax revenue was budgeted at 62% in 2019. In 2020, the hotel motel tax revenue came in at about 61.15% of 19. And in 2021, it came in at 89.48% of 19. Table 4 breaks down the difference of budgeted less projected by tax purpose. So these are sales tax revenues that we received in January is for November activity. We use the average sales tax over the last 15 months in order to project through year end. But however, the budgets were set at 95% of 2019 actuals. Sales tax is projected to come in 1.7 million over the 2022 original budget. And just to note again, we're continuing to see a strong presence of the online sales there. Table 5 shows your sales tax by activity. Education, services, and manufacturing still have not fully recovered and are still significantly below the COVID-19 numbers. Manufacturing showed the highest percentage increase over first quarter of 2021, however, with retail trade showing the highest dollar increase. Retail or regular retail sales tax revenue had a 7% overall increase over the same period next year and an 18% increase over the first 3 months of 2020. And then table 6 shows the year-to-date utility tax activity. So overall, the utility tax revenue is up 10.5% over 2021, or approximately 89,000, of which almost half of this is from gas sales. As the delinquent outstanding utility receivables are paid off, we expect to see a significant increase in the utility receipts over the next utility tax receipts over the next couple months. Many of the delinquent accounts from last year were sent to collections in February and March, and we did start to see payment on a lot of those in April. So we'll be seeing them on the next quarter report. Table 7 shows general fund revenues and expenditures budgeted versus the projected. Again, these don't include the sales tax reserve or other managerial funds of the general fund. Just to note there, we're projecting to come in over $31,000 over budgeted revenue. However, there are still a lot of classifications that are looking at coming in under. License and permits, it looks like is going to come in slightly under budget at this time. However, that can change really quickly with a few building permits. Charges for fees, we still have it projecting to come in under budget. We're hopeful that will change around. Again, that's being cautious based on rec programs that are starting to pick back up after things have opened back up and stuff with COVID. And our fines and forfeits will still come in slightly under budget, and that's due to a lot of the utility late fees and collections that we didn't collect in first quarter because we sent those customers to collections versus charging late fees and door tag fees. Expenditures right now are projected to come in about 2.3 million under budget. So overall, the current projection is to see an excess of revenue over expenditures by about 114,000 at year end. Those expenditures, again, first quarter, I always mention, are really kind of hard to project because it's just the very beginning. But we try to take in consideration where we're at first quarter and the one-time expenditures that haven't been spent yet. Table 8 is our debt activities. We haven't had any new debt in the first quarter. However, the line you'll see highlighted there in yellow is for the water, sewer, or waterworks outstanding bond. It's up to $10 million waterwork bond. The draw period for that bond ends on November 30th. We currently have no debt outstanding there, but we're expecting to begin making draws this month for the repayment of the Bull Road Extension project. And then we'll have quarterly draws probably after that up until the end of November. The table on the next page is of the revenues and expenditures. The actual shows that the city brought in approximately 2.5 million more than it spent so far in 2022. 1.32 million of the excess of revenue over expenditures is for utility and internal service funds. The general fund, which includes the managerial funds here, saw a net loss of just over $1 million. However, a lot of that is due to transfers from the sales tax reserve fund to the debt funds to make their debt payments in June and November. And for investments, the city had 71.3 million in excess cash invested at the end of first quarter. 50.38 million of that was with the LGIP or local government investment pool, which had an average annual yield of only 0.23%. Because it's very liquid. The total average annual yield of our outside investments, however, was at 1.11%. We earned approximately 40,000 of interest in March and about 78,000 for first quarter. Staff recommends council accept the 2022 first quarter financial status and investment reports as presented. I'm happy to answer any questions. Questions?
We talked a few months ago about some different approaches to collecting all of the back utility accounts. How's that going?
It was going slow. We had to get through all the processes to send the notices, to send them to collection. So all of those accounts, which I believe was about $500,000 worth, were sent to collections in February and March. This only goes through March numbers. So in April, we were starting to see some collections. The collection company only reports to us once a month. So we started to see a significant amount in April. We're hoping to go down more each month. However, we've continued to still see an uptick in the most recent last couple months bills that weren't part of those amounts that we sent to collections. We've just started recently doing door tags and stuff again. We had some staffing issues and stuff in the other departments in order to do disconnects and that, but I know like this week alone, I think we had like 10 to 12 door tags the other day. So.
Any other questions?
Motion to accept the first quarter 2022 financial report.
Second. Motion and second to accept the 2022 first quarter financial report. Is there any discussion?
I would just say that the finance committee discussion really got into the granular details. So it's very detailed. So I appreciate the brevity tonight.
Relatively speaking.
Brevity?
Relatively speaking.
All in favor?
Aye.
Two will vote aye. That motion carries. Thank you, Jerica. We are at item 12A, the manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. Heidi Barron, Sternaway, your city manager. I have a few items. One is to request that council set a public hearing to amend the 6-year transportation plan for 2022 to 2027 at their next meeting on May 16th.
So move.
Second.
A motion and second to establish May 16th as a public hearing for the 6-year transportation plan. All in favor?
Aye.
Two will vote aye. That motion carries. I have a couple additional after my next request, and that is also to set a special study session that would start at 5:30 p.m. on July 5th. We'd like to invite Ann McFarlane of Jurassic Parliament to do a training, and we would actually invite all of our board and commission members. A good reminder of how to run a meeting and some really great tips on parliamentary procedure. And it's actually done in a very interesting manner as well. So that would be 75 minutes. And so the study session would start at 5:30 p.m. and finish at 6:45 p.m. that night.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second to set July 5th, 2022 as a study session for parliamentary procedures at 5:30 to 6:45 p.m.
Right. That's a good question.
Certainly.
Would it be possible to make this available virtually to other boards and commissions around the county? Because quite honestly, my observation is even though we struggle sometimes, I think we're way ahead of the curve on, in some cases, and offering this to others if it doesn't double the cost.
We can certainly offer that, and we can offer a cost share option if it does increase our cost. So absolutely.
I was just going to say, for any council members who have not been in one of Ms. McFarland's presentations, you have something to look forward to. They're quite entertaining and engaging. So it's been a few years since I did one, but it's very informative.
So you can be our pitch guy.
I think she does pretty well without any help. She knows where she's going.
All in favor?
Aye.
I too will vote aye. That motion carries.
Thank you. I have a couple additional items because we've been so busy, and I would actually also request that we do a special study session for the Monday, May 16th meeting to continue our parks facilities discussion. We don't want to let that slip by. And that would be again a special study session starting at 6 p.m. on the 16th of May.
So moved.
Motion and second to set a study session for park facilities discussion at 6 p.m. May 16th. All in favor?
Aye.
Two will vote aye. That motion carries.
Excellent. And the last two, after adoption of the Juneteenth holiday, that would actually affect our council schedule as well. Juneteenth falls on a Sunday, June 19th. And so typically we'd celebrate that on Monday, which would be June 20th. And so the second meeting in June would land on a Tuesday, 21st. And then finally, just a reminder, the farmers market opens this weekend. So come on down.
Looking forward to that.
That's all for me.
Council member reports. Councilmember Elliott.
Nothing between the two meetings that was directly related to council. However, I am on the Hope Source Board. And as a result of our last meeting, there was a little bit of language or interpretation difference in what we approved for the Knights Inn. It was very quickly resolved. So if you heard of any, concerns coming out of our action and then the county's actions and then Hope Source Board's action, it appears to be resolved and everything's on track now. So we're in good shape.
What was their county action?
Right after ours or within a few days of ours.
Okay. Thank you.
And then Health Network, I'm still on the executive board for the Health Network. I don't think I'm the chair anymore. So I have to sign everything. But we did talk, there was a mayor's position that was specifically laid out, and then the Health Network itself was asking whether or not that was something that the city wanted to fill with that representation. I just offered that I felt like I could be an effective liaison between the Health Network and the city, but that I would bring that back for discussion if we want to put, physically put somebody on that network conversations. I will tell you, it's headed in the right direction. And in many ways, it's relieving the city of, potentially needing to get involved downstream of things that are not getting handled well. Because I think the Health Network is doing what it's supposed to do, which basically takes care of the healthcare access issues in our county. And so I don't feel as a board member that, we need to be more involved than we are, but I don't know if that's your opinion.
Does anyone have any opinion on that, or do you want to know more about the Health Network and what it does?
It's really stimulating to talk about healthcare policy. I'm just saying, midday.
Well, I mean, I feel like originally we got on it because they were, to Rich's point, I think they were attempting to really implement a much elevated coordination and really kind of shift a healthcare paradigm in the community. I think it may be that just appropriate just to have council representation for any council member, ultimately, that rather than having to nail it to the mayor. But it occurred because I was mayor at the time.
Well, if Rich is covering it, is there any objection to Rich reporting back to us on their activities?
That's all. Other than now, it was awesome.
So is Ellen's first. Nancy.
Conducted a couple of interviews for one new position or a position on the DEI committee. And we have a recommendation that will be coming to City Council hopefully next month. Attended the UAC meeting. I went to Moses Lake with the group from the city and county to see the sleep center down there, and really enjoyed the day. I thought it's it looks like a really great project. Perhaps something we can have more conversation about in the ad hoc committee that we formed. I had a subcommittee meeting of the DEI Commission met last week. And then the Homeless Affordable Housing Committee of the county met last Friday and approves sending a recommendation to the board for the expenditure requests for the Nights In project. So I believe their meeting is tomorrow morning. Is that correct? So we'll see how that comes out. Okay, thank you. David?
I participated in interviews of respective arts commission commissioners, I guess. And those recommendations will be coming to council soon. Josephine and Alex Ayer, the chair of the Arts Commission, and I interviewed 3 people. We have 2 incumbents seeking reappointment and 1 new applicant. It was interesting also just to kind of compare and contrast, the strengths of an incumbent who brings a lot of firsthand experience with a new person who doesn't have that experience but has a lot of other passion. And I think we were fortunate in this case that they weren't competing against each other, because I think it would be very challenging to try to unseat an incumbent if they're performing at the levels these incumbents are. But that is our process, and we will abide by it. But in this case, we were fortunate, and I think we'll have 3 good members. And then attended the COG meeting, and as I mentioned earlier, attended the Finance Committee meeting. I didn't get to go to Maui, but I did spend last weekend in San Francisco, which was great. The weather was fantastic, but it was interesting to sort of observe a big city. And as everyone probably knows, they are going through some very, very heavy duty, serious issues with homelessness, and nothing we have compares to that, obviously, in terms of scale. But it is something the city of San Francisco is actively working on, and it's such a major, large project or problem, challenge, that there is no magic solution or anything like that. But it is still instructive to see how a city can respond in the different methods that they're employing. So, sometimes you can learn some things when you go elsewhere. Go ahead. Oh, one other thing I would like, this has nothing to do with Juneteenth, but I would like to request an excused absence for the now June 21st meeting. Okay.
Motion and second to excuse Councilmember David Miller for the June 20th meeting. May 20. That was 21, right?
Tuesday.
Yes. Second meeting in June. All in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
2 will vote aye. That motion carries. Monica.
This week, we're conducting 2 interviews for Parks and Rec. I've attended 2 of the cultural arts planning meetings now, 2 of the 4, and I think they're going really well. And I really like the direction that it's headed. I attended the short course on planning, which felt really long, actually.
That's the short one.
Friday, I'll attend the Unity Park Focus Group. And a reminder that May 14th is, I think it's Heritage Preservation Day here in Ellensburg. There'll be a lot of fun activities, and including a home tour of the of homes in the Railroad District. And also on May 12th, CWU is hosting a day of action meant to inspire community participation. They'll be hosting a number of activities, both on campus. They'll march to City Hall, and they'll have a community event at Unity Park as well. On your calendar.
What is that?
May 12th.
Did a Ptac meeting. The council basically blessed moving forward with expanded cabinet service, not for the city to pay, but really for the city to be the middle to pay KVH or KVFR, depending on how that works out. But that's going to think moving forward to working out the particulars and then moving forward with the contract. Just to reemphasize Nancy's observation, the County Affordable Homeless and Affordable Housing Committee did approve the expenditure consistent with ours. The one probably major difference was that to meet their homeless, the county's plan to address homelessness, there will be 5 of those units dedicated to people who are homeless, which is a little bit different. I mean, meets our criteria for the RCW, but it gave them a level of comfort in investing the dollars.
Is it, if there's a conflict, do we have to redo anything?
No, there's no conflict. Addressing homelessness is part of our RCW. So if it's 60% AMI and an individual is homeless, it works.
Okay,
so it's good. I did also have an opportunity to go to Moses Lake, as did Terry and Heidi and Jamie. But it was actually a good trip. It was a solid program. I think a good discussion. I think it's a tribute. I just want to recognize and acknowledge the work that we've done as a city and a county to actually communicate. The reason it was a Moses Lake program was because the county was allocating dollars that were not being effective, and the city of Moses Lake actually petitioned Commerce to grab the recording fees that were going to the county to be able to establish the program that we went to see. It's not a place we're in or anywhere close to where we are. So I think it's a tribute to even the conversation earlier this evening, that we're looking to build collaboration and partnerships. And I think that's become hopefully one of the hallmarks of how we approach this stuff. We did have a meeting of the ad hoc committee today. Had a subsequent bit of a conversation with Heidi about potentially maybe institutionalizing that effort a bit more than an ad hoc. But we are moving to understand the gaps in services is the conversation hopefully that will occur next time. Because not all members of the committee went on the trip to Moses Lake, we just kind of updated folks there. There, I think, is a general agreement to continue that conversation. Again, in talking with Heidi, I think we need to bring that back to this council. So there's an understanding of what that program looks like before we take a whole bunch of folks down a path that council doesn't want to necessarily support. So that conversation will probably come back to us in one of our innumerable study sessions. I didn't really say that, but I did. Pretty near. I think I moved the microphone a little closer, but I'm not making eye contact to anybody on my right. So that the other piece, though, we did do the steering committee, or whatever we call it for TIP, the economic development group, continues to be moving forward. I think we've got another in 30 days next month. But again, similar to, I think, Monica's observation of the cultural arts plan, the economic development plan is moving at the pace that we'd expected. I think it's uncovering good stuff. I think it'll be a usable piece. I think the other piece to recognize is that there was a kind of a steering committee, or whatever we call ourselves, with the cultural arts plan that got together and started talking about the implementation, even as the plan is still evolving. We don't know what's necessarily in the plan, but we recognize that to make it work, we're going to need to look at it and a plan for implementation. And that'll ultimately come back to council also. I think that's plenty.
Councilman Nguyen.
Ooh, that was harsh.
I actually had.
I can keep going.
Yeah. I actually had a pretty slow couple of weeks. We did have an interview with the Environmental Commission for a new commission member, and we'll be sending up the recommendation for that one. The lodging tax meetings, both for the collective one with the county and ours for the city, are both happening on Wednesday of this coming week.
I attended an economic summit this morning in which the guy who does the forecasting for the state budget kind of talked about the ins and outs of that. economic forecasting amidst a lot of uncertainty and big disruptions. And also kind of a primer on inflation and supply chain. It was interesting. But not a lot of specifics about Kittitas County. So also attended an Arbor Day event last Friday where the Queen of Spades Garden Club purchased an oak tree for McElroy Park and honoring Gordon Crane, our recently retired arborist. So someday that's going to be a big, beautiful shade tree in the middle of McElroy Park. But right now it's kind of small. At the UAC meeting, we did approve the stormwater management plan and had a discussion about the past due accounts for utilities, as well as a discussion of the aquifer, level of our aquifer. We're measuring the water every year now with a certain procedure to maintain consistency. Let's see. I attended a Leadership Ellensburg, or was Leadership Kittitas County alumni event, and I want to kind of put a plug in for that program. It's put on through the Chamber of Commerce, and folks who have not participated in that, I think it's a good introduction to the city and county if you are new to town, but also if you have been here a while and want that broader overview. And it kind of made me wonder about our Police Citizens Academy, if we were going to do that again this year. Is there plans to do that?
There is, and they did do that last year as well. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
So when does that?
it's generally in the fall.
Okay. So another really worthwhile program to understand what it takes to be a police officer and all the ins and outs. So with that, is there anything further? We are adjourned.